I think I'm going to be very simplistic today. And try to describe the spiritual journey, the human journey, as essentially a journey from I to we. Period. It's not a journey that everybody takes. I-centeredness, ego-centeredness, is sort of an operating principle for the human race. Self-interest, self-defense are all very core ingredients in making the world work. There's a little bit of we in the I, in that when one multiplies and has family or tribe, one begins to get a taste of the I as expanded, that there's a we. It could be just you and another person, or you and a family, or you in the larger tribal sense. And the I is caring for all of that. But the journey from I as the absolute center of your existence to we, where we becomes a center, if you will, is a very hard and difficult journey. It means to step outside of the envelope of your comfort, of your identity, of your security, and to begin to feel for, and I'll use a better word, empathize for and with another, or even ultimately others. And perhaps even to see them as yourself. But not as your ego self, as something beyond the individual, something that is inclusive of something bigger. What happens when you start to experience the expansion into we is that expansion becomes something that is sensible or something you can feel, and it becomes an expanded awareness of and inclusion of the other. And one of the signature elements of that is something we call love. Love is the embrace of other as self. And it can go to just one other. It can go to a family that comes out of that otherness. It can go to all of the people you know. It can even become a kind of an abstract, and that you can really begin to feel what it means to be a human being, to really empathize with the human experience. In other words, to care about people, to care about other people. Not just you as the sole important figure in the universe, but as all of us together. In a way, it's an evolution. It's a growth and an expansion into something larger. And one of the ingredients of it being love becomes expanded love, because the more you love, the bigger your capacity for love, and the more this extraordinary embrace of being grows and evolves. And it's quite beautiful. It's almost like a reason for being. In other words, it amplifies what it means to be. And it's so self-reflective in a way that it becomes like a powerful yes to human existence. This reaching out and including more and more, not just the individual, tight-knitted, protective self, but the bigger possible self, allows you to feel something that is in a way universal, as opposed to individual. And it is such a beautiful, exquisite knowing that when you touch it, in a way it affirms everything. It affirms existence. Being locked into the individualized self, the I, the ego-minded self, makes love difficult. Not only love for other, but love for the self. It makes you guarded, protective, self-referential, unaware, uncaring. It kind of instructs you to buy a gun, to defend yourself at all costs against all others. The journey from that instinct into welcoming others into your universe is hard won. It really takes empathy, which is truly feeling for others, which may become almost unbearable. And empathy kind of moves into something called compassion. Compassion is where you spread the net very wide and just allow all of humanity, with all of its suffering and all of its joy and all of its reaching into the infinite and all of its trembling in a little ego self, to become one with what you are. In a way, it's the human journey, and in a way, it's the spiritual journey. Because you are no longer feeling satisfied living just for your own self-value, for your own self-protection. Something else is occurring, and it feels wildly natural, really big, affirming. And we watch this journey happen around us and within us with a kind of joy, a kind of feeling of, yes, this is how it is or how it can be, maybe even vaguely how it should be. This is a personal journey. It's also a collective journey, sometimes. And one of the most extraordinary things that's happened in our lifetime, and in the lifetime of our country, is that this experiment in democracy, really, has been an experiment in collectively caring for others. So that we're not just us, me, but there's somehow a concern for the larger whole. And there has been a structure created to allow that to work. And so we watch the evolution of a caring environment. It's not perfect, we all know that. You know, there are cultures that really try to reach out and envelop and embrace the larger expression of what we are. And then there are cultures which are very protective and egoistic, very much like, dark fascistic cultures that really are about I against the world, I independent of everyone else, my way or the highway. It's really, there are different forces at work. They're planetary forces. They are egoistic forces. We have them operating within ourselves. There are times where your self-protection and your sense of fear or separation becomes magnified. And then there are times where your sense of faith, belief, release, comfort expands into a kind of embrace of the whole. Culturally, we have all been living in a wonderful, expansive, caring period of the human experience. It's not universal. We can watch the news and we can see there's a lot of stuff going on which is cruel and not expansive and self-aggrandizing and not allowing for the benefit of others. We see that happening all around us and have in the past. But now suddenly we are witnessing the I, the defensive, the egoistic, the me above all others, emerging as a cultural phenomenon. And I think we're all being impacted by that. Especially those of us who have begun to expand into caring about others, into caring about the possibility of the planet, of life, of the joy of all humanity, and feeling that without all humanity benefiting, it's hard for us to benefit, where we feel one with the world in a way, which is a spiritual development. It comes out of effort and practice and will and cultural norms, and when those things begin to become affected, fear arises, basic fear. The egoistic fear is not something that goes away even in the most expansive periods. We are trained, we are taught, and we are biologically conditioned to protect this. Totally understandable. But this evolutionary idea of protecting the whole, or even let's just say the planet or the environment, is such a beautiful reach for the human spirit. When that comes under assault, it puts each of us individually into a place of new awareness that can produce conflict, struggle, fear. It can produce a larger vision, a larger sense of determination to support your instincts, your larger instincts. A lot of changes will happen to people, and they are happening. And so here I am, teaching you, teaching something, I suppose, and trying to know what exactly do I teach at this moment in time. What is the prerogative? What is the thing that's needed around me? Because things have changed, things have shifted. You know, there's a lot of ways of approaching this. One of them, of course, is what I call the non-dualistic approach, which is, well, let me put it this way. Last week I talked about the need to fix ourselves, to repair yourself, to prepare to be strong in the face of difficulty, to know that your trainer in the gym can't do it for you. They can inspire you to go to the gym, but you have to fix it. You have to do the work. That's a very Rudy-esque teaching. The non-dualistic teacher will say, there's nothing to be fixed because you're never broken. This is a wonderful truth. This is deep and profound and real. What is not a broken construct. It's simply a manifestation of a profound reality and truth. And to deeply and profoundly accept what is, to be with what is in a certain sense a very high and noble spiritual teaching. For those who have awakened in this world, there is a kind of thy will be done that extends to every corner and every particle of existence. It may be completely free of human suffering. I don't know that part of it. My experience is what has happened is there is an empathy that has become so vast that it is almost unbearable. Day to day, unbearable. Not unbearable in the sense of, can I take a deep breath and sit and let it all go? Yes. But then I open my eyes and I look at everybody. I look at the newspaper, I look at what's going on around me, and I feel all of it. So do you. I know you do. We feel it. It's a very uncomfortable, unknown, certainly future-based on some level, awareness. Now, the power of now asks you, be here, be present. The future is not here. The future is only in your mind, and it's creating itself basically based on how you're reacting to an unknown event. But it is arriving in the present tense. The future is emerging even as we speak in this present reality. And so we have to find a way to be with the what is. Radical acceptance is an alternative, but here is something interesting. Unless you have awakened, which is an act of profound grace, unless you have awakened, essentially what's happening is there is someone telling you to accept, and the you that's taking that message is an ego mind. However noble, however spiritually uplifted, however expanded, there is a you being told, radically accept what is. That is almost impossible. When there is a you accepting, there is a real disconnect between the truth of spiritual awakening and the yogic principle, which is this working to union, moving toward union. When there is union, it's different than when you are working toward union. Now, every great spiritual teacher will say, you've never been out of the union. You've never been disconnected from the truth, ever. But you don't know that for whatever reason. There seems to be a journey into knowing, a journey into awakening into oneness. And many people now are on that journey, and they are being threatened by suddenly a world that no longer speaks to the easy version of that journey. And we've been very blessed in our time and culture. We have had a very easy ride, maybe one of the easiest rides ever in the history of the human race. And now that is shifting. It's changing into something much more dynamic, much more difficult, much more what are you going to do about it? You can sit home and go, oh, that's fine. It's fine. But it doesn't necessarily satisfy the dream state, if you want to call it, the illusion of your separateness. Maybe it will. But there's either a call to action here, which says there's something to be done, or there is something to just sit and be still, and be open, and accept. And that will be fine until the outer impinges on you with such effort and such impactiveness, if that's a word, that your surrender is nearly impossible. Again, Christ on the cross. There are places and times where you say, please take this from my lips, where it's really hard to deal with what is impacting you. That's your private journey, and we all go through that. Every one of us goes through that. At some point, built into this system is the absolute arrival at termination, when it's finished, when you're done, where you depart, all of this. That absolutely is built in. And almost nobody acknowledges it. remember somebody using the image of a person being thrown off the upper roof of a 100-story building and is trying to plan who's coming to their party by the 30th floor, the 20th floor. You know, it's like you are heading into this non-existence. Spiritual work will tell you that you arrive from nothing and you return to nothing. And we sort of accept that as an idea, but when you're in the midst of enormous somethingness, you know, sunrises and weather events and people and excitement and fear and all of these things, you forget who you are, where you are, what this is. And then certain things come and shake up the system, which is kind of maybe what's happening right now, and you're reminded of your own personal journey. And that your personal journey is in many ways reflective of other journeys, of other people's journeys, and you start to really feel for everyone and everything and the human race and the world, and you start to have this very powerful sense of I am. I am. It's interesting to me that I talk about the journey going from I am to we are, back into I am. I am, as Nisargadatta would talk about it, is the we are, with no separation of a I and a we, just totally one and inclusive. We are in the presence of the I am, and it is revealing itself in ways that we have not experienced personally before. We get reports of it on the news. You know, you can turn the news on and you can see things happening in Aleppo, and you go, you know, I've said this before, because, you know, you get, 42 seconds of Aleppo on the evening news, gone. People suffering beyond belief, gone. You know, you watch the news and you see what's evolving right now in our own country, and then, you know, kind of you turn it off. But it's not going away. None of this goes away, and nor are we left unimpacted by the truth of all these things that go on in our world. All of these things go on. And our job is to find out, how do we react and respond to this? And so, take a deep breath and go, Thy will be done. Find this deep inner space of love and we-ness and connection to other. Broadcast your love of your fellow man to your fellow man and woman. Be an expression of this deep, loving, evolving we-ness in the world. Find that journey. You can do that no matter what goes on around you, no matter what happens. I said last week to someone, I think it was Anne, being on one of those trains going into the Auschwitz, and stepping on a train filled and crowded with people and all the awfulness of that, and one person perhaps stepping aside to make a room for one more person, or touching another person on the shoulder and going, it's kind of an awful image, but in the end, it's the ultimate expression of humanity. The moment of kindness in the worst possible space. I'm not saying we're in the worst possible space. I have no idea what's coming at this moment in time, nor do any of us. But being a dramatist, a film writer, a storyteller, I know what's called foreshadowing in a story. And I see, you put stuff in and it flowers by the end, or it unfolds in the end. I don't always like foreshadowing, because sometimes you don't want to see where it's going to go. Mystery, horror films have incredible foreshadowing, so do love stories. And, what you really want in all of this is for the evolutionary we to allow itself to flourish even in the moments of the most extraordinary expressions of I. That's the journey we're on. How does the we manifest? And if you can get that we into the I am, congratulations. then you simply live your life wanting to emanate as deeply as you can your care and concern for another person or multiples of people in every way you can. And that's really kind of the spiritual journey. It's the manifested journey. How do I express my caring for other people, especially when it gets hard, especially when it gets really hard, when you're so frightened and concerned about yourself? How do you find that thing in you that says, forgive them for they know not what they do? How do you make that trip into yourself? That's the journey. That's really all we're doing here. It's figuring that out. If you think this is magical, mystical, transcendent of everything that's happening, no. This is, I am on this ride from the 100th floor to the basement. How do I find something beautiful in that passage? How do I find something worthy? How do I do the right thing? How do I move beyond the I into we? How do we find a place inside that really embraces and loves another being? Or multiples of beings. That's it. That's kind of all we're doing, guys. And if you think this is something else, where you will gain transcendence and you will have abiding consciousness, even if you get to that, do you think it will be different than what I'm talking about? That you will be a different person? That you won't care anymore about anybody? That you're free of this? Maybe. Maybe ultimate awakening, you're just go off into the Himalayas and sit in your cave. Not my road. It wasn't Rudy's road. And it's not the road I express here. So if it's a road you're looking for, go somewhere where you sit in an ashram and you meditate all day long and you just sit there and you just don't feel touched by the world. I'm not going to say that's wrong. I don't know that it's wrong. But this isn't the journey. The journey here is, this is your spiritual life. This, every step you take, everything you do, every minute of your day is that. This is not about some transcendence of that. It's not about some avoiding of that. It's living that. And that's why I went to Rudy. I could have lived in an ashram and signed off on don't dance, don't have sex, don't do this, don't do that, just be pure. I could have signed off on that. I hated that. I hated that idea. I'm here. I want to be here and share this. I lived in an incredibly beautiful time where I wasn't really impinged upon by the world very much. It wasn't that intense. Now it's very, very intense. At least it is for me, and everyone that I'm talking to is feeling this kind of intensity. And we're not even hearing each other very well. I mean, one of the great things about grief and difficulty is how alone you are in it. We saw the movie Jackie last night. Terrific film. It's really about grief. And what it really, really demonstrates, nobody in the universe could know what Jacqueline Kennedy was experiencing the days after the assassination. Nobody. You can imagine, you can try to create it. Nobody can go there. It cannot be expressed. Nobody knows what you are going through now. You can try to share it with people, you can try to talk about it, but if you're really deep in this, you're in the desert with yourself, working it through. And there's big things that come up. Why? What is this? The great existential truths. Look, for some of you this may be, what's he talking about? It's just politics, or whatever. And that may well be true. That may well be true. But I have a feeling of a certain kind of shroud or darkness having passed over the land that I don't like, and I see it getting darker. And I see there as an imperative to take charge of my relationship to that darkness, and my relationship to my students, and just share my particular view. And that's all I can do. And so, some of you may find this idea of, whatever they call it, being the change you would like to see in the world, being the light you would like to emanate from the world, being the love you wish the world would send back to you, as a good teaching, that's what I'm teaching. If you're looking for, how do I get out of here? How do I transcend this? How do I get free of this situation? Where do I move? What do I do? I don't have an answer. I really don't. And it's fine with me if you stop listening to these talks. or come here, because I don't have anything new to provide other than the absolute energetic experience of my loving you, caring about you, wishing you the best version of this unfolding that's taking place now, wishing you the journey from I to we, letting you discover that what empathy is painful but worth it, finding compassion because it really is a transcendent state, where you care about others as you care about yourself, realizing perhaps that the other is the self. That's the ride. And that's all I know what to do about here. And I really do feel some people in spiritual work are trying to say, get me out of here. I'm not able to convey that. I'm teaching you how to be here, and that knowing that the being here is it. It's all you got. So I can, go on and on and on with this same basic thought, but let me just tell you, this is good stuff. It's not easy. The work of the world right now is more demanding than it was a month ago. Mm-hmm. You're called upon to higher duty in a way. This is not a passive period, unless you particularly want to make it passive. I suppose you can. You can say this is the front line. I don't know. I mean, if you want to be on the front line, this is a version of the front line. I think we're all on the front line. I mean, everybody really. So how do you do this? I had a moment the other day. I was just walking with my grandson downtown, his favorite thing to do, and we're standing in a shop, and a man outside is yelling at a Hispanic man to get out of the country. And I've never ever seen that, ever, in my whole life. And I wanted to run out and say something, but I had my grandson, and I felt constrained. But my heart broke, because I didn't know where to put my allegiance. I didn't know what to do, nor did I know what to say to this guy, because his anger was so horrific, and unbridled now because he's been given license to let his anger out. That's what I'm starting to see. It's personal. It's not just an abstract thing in the newspapers. It's real. And so my first instinct is protect my grandson, which I did. I don't have any fear or hesitation about having done that. But like I'm saying, the front lines are coming to us on some level. We need to be present in that and figure out how to do it. Week by week, we will continue to gather here as long as somebody wants to come and sit and talk about this stuff. But if this becomes like not what you want to hear, trust me, there are people who probably are going to tell you what you want to hear, and I would tell you, that's fine. Go. But all I can do is, I guess, follow this unfolding out the way I'm experiencing it, and I will do that. And if you're here, great. And if you're not here, you got some old talks to listen to that were from another time that was a lot sweeter and more gentle. Anyway, I love you guys. I really love you guys. When I sit with you, the love that pours out is deeper and more powerful than it has ever been. I think that's part of the unfolding experience. It's no longer casual in its aspect. It's now necessary, deeply necessary, and I feel able to do it. And I'm hoping each of you will find in yourself a capacity to be that and really be it for other people, because it's needed. That hand on the shoulder now is more important than ever. And it doesn't have to be more than that, but it does have to be that. Listen to people, don't tell them how it is. And I mean, you can listen to me talking like as though I'm listening, but trust me, I'm trying to listen. And I will share my version of this with you, and you can share your version with others, and we just need to be present with one another and not dismiss the journey. This is real. We're all in it, and it's powerful. And, I may be over-dramatizing it. I have a gift for that. But if that's how it comes across, then fine. And if it comes across as important and real, then listen to it on those terms. Anyway, I do love you, and I'm grateful you're here, and I'll see you in 2 weeks on a Saturday. Okay? Thank you.